And again, welcome to the 88th episode of That Sewing Blab. We are so happy to have you all here once again for another fabulous show. For those of you who are new to the show, that lovely woman over there, the lovely brunette that's looking our way waving, that is Dawn Pengali from Duelling Designs, and I am her co-host, Myra Rentmeester from Simple Inspirations. Now that handsome gentleman right there, we'll get to him later, but unless you were living under a rock, I think everybody knows him already. But just hold on for a few minutes because we will get to him. So again, for those of you who are new to the show, if you have a question for us or a comment, there's a link down below that says ask a question. All you have to do is hit that link and post your question there, or you can post your question in the comment section on your right. Just make sure you put a question mark after it. And I think there's a pop-up that comes up. If you do, just hit post it so we won't miss that. We won't miss your questions. Now, a lot of you who are new will know that you can see our show on a replay. We would really love for people to see it live, but you can see it on a replay on crowdcast.io, or you can see it on YouTube as well, because we do post them on YouTube later. But it's really important for all of you to try and join us live, because there's so many perks to the live shows. You actually get to come on. You can actually ask questions of the guests that we have on. You can participate in some of the live voting polls. Sometimes we even have gifts for the guests who are on the live stream. So it's really important if you get a chance to join us on the live stream. So I know I don't want to keep everybody's waiting. They want to talk to this handsome man that's right here. So I won't hold you up. I'm going to pass it on over to my lovely host, Dawn.
Hi, Myra. Hi, Kenneth. Yes. I wanted to mention, I had a little faux pas, and just so everyone knows ahead of time, I didn't post our last show on YouTube. I normally post it the Thursday after the show, but we had a little technical difficulties with the middle show of the Sew You Think You Can Sew competition, so it took a while, but I did put up the finals of the Sew You Think You Can Sew sewing competition up today, so that's on YouTube. So sorry for the delay. It was a week overdue, which is very bad, so I apologize. But now on to the good stuff. Kenneth D. King. Okay, I have to tell you a little story first. I went to Peter Lappin's Mill Pattern Boldness Day. I was really nervous, fretting about what am I going to wear? There's going to be all these fabulous sewists there. And then we go out to lunch in the middle of the day, and who's sitting there? But Kenneth D. King. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm talking to the ladies around me. I'm like, I want to ask him to come on the show, but I am so nervous. And I really was. This poor girl sitting across from me was probably bored listening to me talk about it. But in the end, I got up and I went up and I asked him, and oh my gosh, so friendly, so stylish. The shoes, I loved it. Yeah. And just so kind. So he agreed to come on the show, and I've been, excited ever since. Yeah, bring on 2018. So for those of you who don't know the fabulous Kenneth D. King, he's done so much, but I've even written some of them down just to make sure I don't miss the majority of them. He's a couture designer, been in business since 1987, I believe. A teacher, a prolific author of many fabulous sewing and pattern making books, a contributing editor to Threads since 2006, which is really cool. Professor at FIT, not FIT, FIT, the famous school in New York City. A novelist. He has his own autobiographical. Nope. Myra?
Autobiographical.
Thank you, Kenneth. Sorry. How embarrassing. And a podcaster. I'm just going to pretend I didn't just trip all over that. Yeah, he is amazing. And yes, Kenneth, we can't thank you enough to come on the show. Thank you enough for coming on the show. Even though it was your anniversary, you are amazing. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome. So what do you want to know? Well,
the first question we always ask, because personally, I just find it completely fascinating. I always say it's like a superhero. You find out their origin stories. I would like to know when you started sewing, even though I think some people might like to know, when you started sewing, and really what was the spark that, that started you wanting to sew? Like, what was that creative spark?
Well, I started when I was 4. I started sewing for Barbie. And my Barbie was 27 in my mind. She lived in a big city, drove a convertible. She had a really good apartment, and she wore evening clothes because she always went to the opera and the theater and restaurant. And I lived in Kansas. My parents didn't quite know what to make of this because that wasn't our life in Kansas. So I started sewing when I was 4 for Barbie and my troll dolls. And then because I've always made things. I like making things. It makes me happy. My grandma was sort of the person who argued my mother didn't want me doing it, but my grandma basically said, shut up. He's easy on rainy days. So, so I started making clothes for myself when I was a teenager. And my bachelor's degree is in fashion merchandising. In the specialization is window display. And since I do a lot of different kinds of things, I can mix paint to match color. I can wire electricity. I can upholster furniture.
Wow.
I do all these things. It was a good way of getting kind of into the fashion world because I was living in Oklahoma at the time. And so after college, I worked at a Dillard's department store. And before I left Oklahoma City, I was the display manager of that department store, which at the time was the largest department store in Oklahoma City at age 23. But there's a guy I met there who's also in the novel. He moved to California, to San Francisco, and he needed an assistant. And so I went to visit and interviewed and got the job as his assistant. That's how I ended up in California. So I worked at that place. It was a small chain of stores originally, and they went out of business. So I signed on at Macy's, where I had my first crazy boss. And the Devil Wears Prada makes crazy bosses look kind of chic and fascinating. You want to work for them, but in real life, that's not the case. This guy was this pear-shaped, pockmarked guy with bad, and we hated him. The rules changed hourly. A display could be good at 10 in the morning. It would be awful at 4 in the afternoon, and you never knew what. So we hated him so badly that we had a chance to kill him and make it look like an accident, and we almost did.
Oh my word!
Reincarnation, and so I figured that whatever karma I need to do, resolve with this person, I want it resolved in this lifetime. So we didn't, and that's when I realized I had to work for myself because that was easier. So about the same time, the guy that got me the job in California had a very rich friend, a woman who was looking for a Mother of the Bride dress. And she looked in London and Paris and Rome and San Francisco, couldn't find anything she wanted. So he said, I know this talented young designer who I can introduce you to. So she was my first paying client. And that was in 1983. So then I realized, because I've always liked detail. And what I learned from her was that I like rich people's money. Because sometimes the rich people are not that well behaved. It just depends on the person. It's kind of hard to tell. I learned a lot during this particular time, and a lot of it's in the novel. But the big thing wasn't to make money doing this. So fitting was my issue, as it is. Fit is the holy grail. So I decided I was going to be an accessories designer. I started making hats. This was in 83, 84. And so I started making hats. And in late 86 was when I started selling to a store in Los Angeles called Maxfield. And it wasn't the owner of the store. It wasn't the buyer of the store. It was the head sales lady. She was the one who they brought in, and she said, oh, yeah, I can sell this. And she went, this is 2 days before Thanksgiving, and I remember it because I was sitting there, phone bill, Thanksgiving, what am I going to do? And it was like evening, she sold to Maxfield, and this sales lady named Mindy got her black book out. And she said, she called everyone in her black book and said, you need to get in here and you need to buy this stuff because this guy's going to be big. And the pieces they bought were out of the store by 10:30 in the morning on Wednesday. And they were on the phone saying, do you have anything else laying around your studio that you can send down? And I had been making things for 3 years. My charming little habit, this little hobby I had. Well, who makes like, this is inventory. So I bought everything up and I sent it to Los Angeles and I was launched. So that, that's kind of a short version.
That's awesome. Oh my goodness.
So then, I quit my job March of '87. You all are probably too young to remember this, but the stock market crashed in October of '87. I lost my apartment in December of '87 because I was determined the business was going to survive. So I slept on a broken down sofa in the studio, which was like a big garage, listening to the mousetraps clacking like castanets at night because, it was a garage. And before it was done, I had to melt down all my jewelry to fill an order. But, I did it, and I'm here today because of it.
Wow. That is I'm sorry?
Questions.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That was absolutely fabulous just to know that little bit about you. But, and some of you probably will get an opportunity to do that. I did. He has some lovely podcasts where he shares some of this information that he just shared with us. And I truly enjoyed the ones that I've listened to and plan on going back to listen to all of them because they were just that good. But one of the questions I need to ask you, first I have to say, you are definitely style personified. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I mean, absolutely.
Wallace Windsor, the Duchess of Windsor used to say, I'm not much to look at, but I can dress better than everyone. So, to see, I show my students at FIT think I've always been old. And every now and then I'll haul out a picture of myself from 1979 because I did some modeling in college. And my specialization, this seems like a very strange specialization. I'm very short. I'm like 5'5". And I was really thin. And my specialization, this is before Photoshop, was making tall guys look taller in photographs. Because if you photographed me and you didn't have any reference, other people around, I looked tall. Yeah. I was photos, I think, crap, I look so old now. But style saves it all.
Yes, I agree. Age is just a number.
Right.
Hear, hear.
Well, what I wanted to ask you, and you mentioned that about your students, and they shouldn't be calling you old because that's just a number. But I had two questions, but I want to just mention this first because you said that about being a student. I know that one of your students was Joshua McKinley, and
Yes.
he was in the ninth, I believe it was the 9th season. He was the 9th season runner-up of Project Runway.
Yeah.
Now, that's way cool. And I'm sure you have more students that are equally as amazing as Joshua was. But I just have to ask you, I don't think you're going to be slowing down anytime soon. You keep making a reference about that, but.
Well, a little aside about Josh. I mean, he was really funny the first night in class. It was a couture technique class. So the first night I was kind of going on about how much I love installing the diamond gusset. It's a nerdy thing, but I love installing the diamond gusset. So I know everything about fashion, age 22, said, well, I've never heard of it. Who uses it anyway? So I mentioned a few names. And he said, well, I work for Armani Exchange and I've never seen it. I said, oh, perhaps you're confused about the title of this class, young man. Oh, here it is. It's called Haute Couture Construction. So, about a week later, I'd done the demonstration. I was walking around and I got to his table and he did the flirt with the professor thing. So I got in his face and I said, stop right there. I said, okay, I'm just going to be honest with you because he is better looking in person than he is on TV.
He's gorgeous on TV.
Oh, you see him in person. Yes. And so anyway, I said, I'm going to be honest with you. You start at a disadvantage in this class because of your looks. I assume you're either going to try to get by on those looks or that you're stupid. So don't prove me right. And he was a little gentleman from then on. Other professors were talking about this troublesome student. That would be, I guess, a nice way of putting it. And, I kept hearing all these things. Like, there was one professor on anxiety medicine. And I said, who is this kid? So if you get him to my class, I said, Josh, I said, you mean like that really tall, good-looking Josh? That one? I said, yeah. I said, he's a little lamb in my class. And I was talking about it, and what they kind of realized is like I kind of did this like, no, you don't cross the line with me. And I ran into him about a year ago out in Chelsea, and he said, I used what I learned from you every day, and you were one of only two professors who challenged me. So, yeah, overall, I think a talented guy.
Yeah, he's really good. And actually, that first part when you started talking about him when he was challenging you sounded like something definitely. You had his verbiage, his sound, and everything together. Oh my goodness! But yes, he was very talented, and he is drop dead gorgeous. He truly is.
Look at him in person. He's
wow. Okay. Yeah, time to move on. Okay, well, we know that you have a lot of things. I mean, you have a lot of balls up in the air, and I don't believe any of them have ever dropped.
Oh, yeah.
When you get inspired or when you have time to do something, where does your inspiration come from?
Technique.
Very cool.
You see, I have this real fondness for the Belle Epoque, that period before World War I, aesthetically. There was a real appreciation of splendor. You know, like here in New York, if you follow my Instagram, I do, every now and then I take photos of the mosaics in the subways because they're splendid. You look at this stuff and you think, you would never see this now. There was an appreciation of splendor in everyday life. And so aesthetically, that's what really makes me happy. But it really is driven by technique. Most of the work that I've done, the things that I'm known for, answered a question. And so kind of the couture that I've worked on most recently, I studied with a woman in San Francisco named Simone, because kind of fast forward to 1990, I'd been designing accessories and the customer started wanting clothing. So I realized that I understood conceptually what was happening in pattern making, but I didn't know the rules. So there was a woman in San Francisco named Simone who trained at the École Gare Levine in Paris. She got her diploma from the Gare Levine. She got her certificates from the Chambre Syndicale, and she was trained as a premier for a couture house. So say Dior would hand her the sketch and say, Madame, I want this.
Wow.
And she would have to translate that into an actual muslin. So she moved to San Francisco and she trained as she was trained. So I started studying with her, and she would talk about seams. She would call seams scars. So she would very dramatically say, you don't want a scar on your face. You should not have a scar on your garment. And because in the couture, having a seam there just because you couldn't figure out what to do is kind of not done. It's bad form. Yeah. So the seam should perform an aesthetic function, or it should perform a structural function. So for me, the whole thing about making garments that either are seamless or are apparently seamless is the technique. I mean, that's really what makes me happy now. And so the three different what I call lines of inquiry, the leafing, the cut work, and the souffle, those are three different answers to that question. How do you avoid the scars? So that's, you know, it's a technical thing. There is, because my dad was an electrical engineer, and he was always bringing home alarm clocks and gauges and gears and little, things for me to take apart. So it kind of, that's how my mind turns, is from an engineering standpoint.
Wow. Now I have to be honest with you, that's the first time when I've ever asked that question of anyone that they responded in that way, that technique is what inspires them. But that's really cool to think of when you think about that. It's kind of like when we did that challenge, Dawn, and we had that piece of trim and we just looked at it and thought about how we would use it. It wasn't some inspiration from somewhere else. It was just that one piece. And we used our techniques to do, and I loved yours, but that's enough of that. We want to talk about Mr. King here.
Because the older work, when I got into Maxfield, the first piece that really started me there was, strangely, it wasn't the hats, it was a vest. It was an evening vest. And so it had lapels. And I don't have an image of that. Sadly, I didn't send one of those. But the lapels, part of my thing too is I'm dyslexic. So I did this vest with the embellished lapels. And I had a real difficult time seeing mirror images matched. So when this vest took off like I realized, okay, I have to figure out a way around this whole dyslexia thing. So I decided to use yardage trim because it has a regular unit of repeat. And so if you're using a trim, the two questions that come up are, one, what do you do with the ends? You know, you can't tuck them into a seam because it's kind of in the middle of a lapel. How do you make it look like, you know, it ends organically instead of just smacking something on top of the ends? The other thing is, how do you make it look like you didn't just go buy some trim and sew it down? So those questions created an entire body of work that lasted from late 86 to, I'd say probably 96 when I started experimenting. Wow. So, you know, I using that same technique on all sorts of different things, it gave my work a stylistic unity, but it all evolved from technique.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
We have a couple pictures. I can't thank you enough, Kenneth, for sending them to us. We have a couple pictures of some of your work, and I was wondering if you could explain kind of some of the things about them, maybe your inspirations or any stories you can think of, because I'm sure there's lots of them. The first one is actually a picture of your work, but I couldn't resist putting this first because it's just a gorgeous photo. It's you in your studio, I believe, right?
Yes. Yes, that is a jacket that I made. That's fairly recent. That's my New York studio. That jacket is covered with over 30 pounds of brass uniform buttons.
Wow.
And, you know, I did a blog post for Threads as well on this. It weighs, it's exhausting to wear, but it's really good looking. Someone gave me 75 pounds of brass uniform buttons. I had to do something. So that's where that one came from. And I love the photo. You know, it's just kind of like, I was just hanging out in my studio in New York, you know.
Yeah.
Bravo. Looks good too. Wow. Nice job.
Those buttons can be quite collector's items. I've been to quite a few button collections. I'm a geek of all sorts, I'll tell you, Kenneth. And they are actually, some of them are like at least $300. Like, yeah. For a button, you don't realize what you have, especially with the military buttons. There's a lot more gentlemen who collect them.
Really costly, because I just got this big mass of them, and I went to a party once, and I had someone who was really looking at the jacket, and he was saying, you know, some of these buttons are crap buttons, but you know, this one here is like, oh my God, and this one here, like, I have buttons from the 3rd Avenue elevated train conductors in New York. Now, they tore that down in the 50s. So, you know, but, you know, luxury is not having things. Luxury is wearing them out.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes. They will be very well loved.
Yes,
those
most
buttons. Definitely. This is another one of your fabulous signs.
Oh, my gosh, that's gorgeous. Yeah. Now, is that a sweater or that's a coat?
Coat, yes. It was the challenge. This is foiled wool. So, you know, the beauty of that is the cut edge is a finished edge because it's all felted. The challenge was I got this bunch of fabric that was, I'd say, 18 inches wide and 3 yards long. They were strips. And so it's very difficult to, you know, it's like you can't really make anything out of it that way. So I decided that I wanted to make something that had no vertical seams. So if you look on, you know, there's no neck seam on the back. There's no armhole seam.
Wow. Yes.
There are no vertical seams.
No scars.
Yeah. And so if you look at I think there might be a back view as well. I left the fabric on the sleeves smooth because I didn't want it to look like I just bought some fabric that was made like that. So all of the shaping in the jacket is incorporated in the applique, joining the different layers together.
That is beautiful. How long did it take to complete this?
Let's see. You know, if I put the time end to end, it was maybe a week. I sew fairly. Wow. but you know, for me, the part of my process is I use what's called a half scale dress form, and I have this particular coat body. I have different bodies, kind of go-to bodies that I know that work for different things. And so I got out my coat body and I shrunk it down to half scale and taped it all together so that, you know, it was basically one piece. And then I call it the bark coat. I went on the internet and got some images of bark, and with the light box, you know, I drew all the and then traced all the pieces. And then what's really cute is, you know, I had to test it. So I made it up in half scale to see if it actually would all fit together and it was going to give me the shape I wanted. And, you know, so it was half scale is a really effective way of working on a complex piece like this. So you're not burning through acres of muslin and acres of paper and lots of time. It's a very small container of doing it. And then you get a sense that, yes, it's going to work, no, it's not. And, you know, when I saw that it was going to work, then I went ahead. Because see, how you do it, this is kind of something to know. You have a pattern you like. You take it to Kinko's and you Xerox it at 50% on the big format copy. So you have a half-scale pattern. So what I did then is I did all the manipulation and got it, you know, right. And so all the pattern pieces that I used to make my half-scale, when I realized it was going to work, I took them back to Kinko's and Xeroxed them at 200% because you want to double it. Doesn't seem, you know, it's my sister.
Yeah. It's kind of weird, yeah, but
yeah. And so, you know, I used, you know, modern technology to, you know, get this pattern that I wanted. And so that's how the pattern work came about. So it's a good one. And to wear.
Wow. What a great idea. We have a question in our comment section over here. One of the ladies, Claire, asked, so you have so many things going. How do you organize your time?
Whatever is going to pay comes first.
Of course.
I've kind of scheduled pretty, you know, I have my schedule for the year kind of, you know, kind of out there. You know, there are times I have to just stop and do something. Like last week, my husband, he has a cat. His name is Marvin. Marvin is blind. He's been blind since birth.
Oh,
he's a sweet cat. Yes, and Marvin is a rambunctious cat, and he had this chair. You know, it had this big kind of shapeless slipcover from Pottery Barn, you know, and I just hated that damn slipcover. But I did, you know, I would say, you know, I can make a slipcover to fit that chair. Oh no, I like, okay, fine. So Marvin and tore a big hole in it, and so last week,
and you're like,
he said, honey, I can make you a new slipcover. And so that was the project last week. I just kind of stopped everything and made the slipcover, and, you know, husband is happy, cat is happy, everyone's happy. But I organize it with what pays first. And then, you know, then there are also the things that, you know, that are kind of dear to my heart. And, you know, this podcast now, this is one of those things that I have to kind of wedge it in with everything else because it's, you know, it's a little bit of time. But, you know, I don't watch TV. I don't watch TV. And so
that's a good thing.
It frees up so much time if you're not sitting in front of the TV. Yeah. So that's how I work.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Great question. Thank you,
Yes.
Claire, and thank you, Kenneth. There aren't any questions at the moment, I don't think, and we'll answer them at the end like we normally do.
Okay.
But we do still have a few more of your gorgeous photos, because I think it's important for people who might not have seen you before to realize that, yes, you're a couture designer. We've heard the words before, but you really do make like really unique, one-of-a-kind pieces that the detail is amazing, and they have a life of their own. So, I mean, when they see the photos, I think they kind of get more of an appreciation for your work.
Well,
can you tell us?
This is what
tell us more about this.
This is the organza cocoon coat. This is the souffle technique. This is all manipulation. The pattern weighs more than the coat. This is probably 30 yards of organza, all told. And there are only 2 seams. They're about 10 inches long each. I'm not going to tell you where they are. It is a lot of handwork, a lot of handwork. But, you know, it's what I like about this is the transparency isn't as readily apparent in this photo, but it's transparent. And I use polyester organza or nylon organza. And some people clutch their pearls and, oh my God, you're not using silk. Silk would not work with this, because if you sat on it once, it would be squashed like a bug and it would never, ever look good again. With this, you can roll it up, you know, throw it in a suitcase. At the other end, you just shake it out, maybe hit it with a little steam, and it looks great. It also, since it's polyester, all of the pockets of air make it warm. So it's a paradox.
Oh.
It's transparent, but it's warm.
Uh-huh.
So this goes back to, you know, technique in understanding your textiles, because, you know, all of this is made possible by man-made fibers.
Oh.
So yeah.
Well, I have a question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Question.
Well, while you're actually on the photos of the garments, do you have any one particular project that you just absolutely adore over the others?
Oh, that's a hard question. It's like saying, you know, I love one child better than the others.
Oh,
Really, you know, I would say that in the embellishment body of work, which was like 86 to 96, the Elton John hats would be the ones, because he ordered a lot of them. We figure he has over 100 pieces, and so you know, I know he would order 4 hats, 2 weeks, blank check. And so for me, you know, the big how can I do better? How can I give him something, you know, better? So I really, all of the really, really, really good hats, especially, went to him. And there's one some years ago. If you go on YouTube and you put in Elton John Diet Coke nightclub, there was a commercial. You're probably too young to remember it, but the nightclub scene, and it caused a real firestorm at the time, because they used like Humphrey Bogart and James Cagney and Louis Armstrong electronically in there, and it caused a storm. But the hat is one of mine. So, and if you go to like the video for Sacrifice, the video for You Gotta Love Someone, those are my hats. There is a video for Club at the End of the Street. You see one of my hats and one of my vests animated. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess if I had to say, you know, if it was fonder, closer to my heart, it would be all of those hats. You know, he was the perfect client to work with.
Oh, okay. I can't even imagine, because men tend to overall, if they're famous, kind of all look the same and kind of boring to me. That's just me. But then when you have someone like Elton John, I mean, the sky's the limit. That must be, for someone creative like you, that must just be amazing.
Lovely man. Lovely, lovely man. You know, no one can talk smack about him around me, because he was just wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would love to talk about this one too. They're all so gorgeous.
Yeah, this is beautiful too. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Okay, I had to create that fabric. It's a 3-layer sandwich. The outer layer is a spotted net. The blue is a taffeta, and then there's that curry gold organza underneath. So it's a 3-layer sandwich, and the where you see the gold through the blue, that's all cut. I had to cut all that by hand. And
wow.
So, you know, essentially what I was doing here was creating a textile to the shape of a garment. You know, because you think, okay, you get the pattern and then you cut the garment out. Well, I had, this again was a half-scale dress form kind of thing. And I had, it's all kind of, you know, it's abstract roses, as that's what it is. If, you know, if you really work. But it's all cut work, and then it's like a 3-layer sandwich. So it's, you know, it's
beautiful.
You see, part of it, and I tell my students, if you make something that is so labor intensive that it is not cost effective to knock it off, you own it. Because the mass producers don't want to go through that kind of effort. And, you know, so small is the new big.
True.
I've never thought of it that way. That's very clever. It's definitely true.
Yeah. Okay.
And how about this beauty?
Oh, yes.
I know.
So I love this piece. It's so fun to wear. It is clown hair and hair weave. So I had to make fabric. And so, again, this was a whole series of blog posts I did for Threads magazine, if anyone wants to look at the process. And at one point, I'm a little bit surprised sometimes at the comments I get. Towards the end, there was a comment from one reader, and it was something like, "No amount of technical excellence and expertise can justify this monstrosity." And I'm like,
right. Oh yeah, right.
So I kind of responded to the, dear correspondent. I basically said something like, I like it when people like my work, but that isn't really why I do it. It's either to please the customer or to please myself. And
Exactly.
I'm showing it here. You can take the technique and maybe use it in your own way, but this is what I chose to do. So, but it is really fun to wear. And when we did this photo, I was, the photo studio is near, close to my studio. So I was going to dinner with friends afterwards, and I thought, I don't want to carry this in a bag. I'll just wear it. And so as I was walking, New York, Manhattan, did two road crews I passed, these guys, and I was expecting, like, ooh, look at the game, and both times, they're like, "Hey, great jacket!" I'm like, "Thank you, gentlemen." So then later on, I ended up in the Times Square subway station, and there was this guy taking my picture, and it was one of those things that I couldn't place his face. I knew him, but I couldn't place his face, and so I just, people take pictures of me sometimes. So I said, okay, and about 2 months later, a friend of mine emailed me, and she emailed me photos from Jeremy Scott's spring collection, and it was colored hair. And it was Jeremy Scott who was taking the pictures. It's like, because it was a face that,
yeah.
This is something I tell my students at FIT, or anywhere, like the kids, I say, get your damn nose out of your device. You're in the, New York, it's a fashion capital. He had an old school camera. He was looking. And so he got inspiration. So, yeah.
When you were talking, Kenneth, about someone replying to you on Threads, that was something, one of my questions I had for you, because I often, I imagine when you're on the forefront of fashion, some people will not understand it. I mean, that's the whole point. It's not style. Style is different from fashion. Fashion is fashion forward, although you're incredibly stylish too. But yeah, I was wondering, do you have any advice for people who, because you see it nowadays, people don't care if it's online. They'll just say negative comments and they don't really think about the person behind it or how it feels. Do you have any advice for someone who might have put themselves out there by putting a dress on and putting it online and then getting a comment like that?
I would say that you just have to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because really, the person who feels they have to make a comment like that is someone who has to make someone else feel less than so they can feel good about themselves.
Yeah, I agree.
You just have to ignore it. My feeling is if you don't like what I'm wearing, don't look at it.
Yeah.
Exactly. I agree, Kenneth. I agree.
What's not to like in this? I mean, wow.
I love this coat. This is my friend Susan Calgi, my friend and colleague at Threads, Susan Calgi, gave me 2 Colleen rugs. And so first up, before I did anything, her husband is a rug dealer in Baltimore. And I asked, okay, would it be sacrilegious or bad for me to make something out of these? Because I don't have floor space. I live in Manhattan. It's a tiny little place. I don't have floor space for 2 rugs. And she said, oh no, she basically said, these are what they wrap the good rugs in. So I made this. And what's really funny is I had a comment on this. It was like, well, it looks like a carpet. I'm like, not written in the post that I was making it out of carpet. It'll look like a carpet. Why would you fight against it? I mean, like, got the fringe, why would you fight against it? But so yeah, it's fun, and the back is fun too. And with the leftovers, I made a carpet bag out of it. So I used it all up. And it was the thing. The challenge was sewing in the sleeve. because you have to, on these, I had to use overlap seams instead of like a regular seam where you put the right, I wouldn't say it was like sewing carpet. It was sewing carpet. And so, no, seriously. And oh my God, there was a point where I thought maybe this is going to be a vest because, Nina, the space under the arm is not all that large. And I was able to finally get it done, but there was a lot of foul language.
I bet.
So it's like, phew, got that done. But yeah, it's fun to, why not? Why not make something out of the carpet?
That's another, oh, sorry, Myra. I was just going to say about the coat. That's another instance where knowing the rules, like you said, you went back to school to learn the rules, and knowing all those fabulous techniques, when you get into a tricky situation, you're like, well, I'm not going to do a normal seam. You might know different threads or a different sewing machine. Like, because you have a lot of that knowledge, you can trouble make those. But if someone was like a newbie trying to sew a carpet jacket, that could go very awry.
Absolutely.
I encourage people because, see, I have, and I tell my students at FIT, I made 5 bridesmaids dresses in 6 hours. I've made the fox fur for the Chihuahua. Yes, that 5 braid. Yeah, that was 5 brides. I can testify, fully lined. Yes, ma'am.
Oh my word!
A friend of mine, she's a procrastinator, and and she had appendicitis, and these 5 bridesmaids dresses were due like, it was Saturday before the wedding is when she started cutting them out, and she had to be taken to the hospital. So she called me on Monday and said, I'm in a big fix here. And I said, okay, I get there on Wednesday. So, I got there and I said to her, if you breathe a word to anyone that I made these, they will find you murdered in your bed. They looked okay, but to my mind, they looked like 20 miles of rough road. And I tell my students, I've done the little, this is kind of a fun thing, the little girls tap dancing troupe. This friend of mine, again, a situation where she was in a panic, and she had it was 8 little girls, like 8-year-old girls, and it was 6 different numbers. One was like the Yankee Doodle Dandy, red, white, and blue. One was like the Cowboys with a little French vest, and the little pink FedEx tap dance dresses, like these fuchsia pink halter dresses with like fringe and rhinestones on the butt, and and these little girls are about the same size as my dog, so I made another one for my dog. And we realized, then we found out we needed another one, so I just rinsed it out and sent it out. And I tell my students, it's good to know, like, down and dirty, you need to get it done in an hour. There's a whole range, there's a whole spectrum between there and, like my couture, where I build it for a 25-year useful life. Because early on, I had a curator tell me that the kinds of people who buy my things, it's about 25 years, and then they start handing it on to museums. So I'm a little bit ahead of the game because I have things in museums already, like the Victoria and Albert in London. I always like to drop that one.
Yes.
But so I, there's a whole continuum, and so I tell my students, if you have a bag of tricks, and part of that is you just have to sew, you just have to make the mistakes. Ruining a few yards of fabric is the dues you pay for being proficient. And so, if you know that, okay, with this amount of time, and this is the budget for the person, and this is the, you can kind of gauge where along that continuum that you're going to be. Because really, and the other thing I like to say is perfectionism is a disease. Perfectionism is a disease.
Oh my.
Never get it. You can never get it perfect. And so, no, really, and it's a form of fear, because I know people who never get anything done because they're trying to make it perfect. I'm like, oh, for heaven's sakes, just finish the damn thing. And really, because, like today, because I'm going out for my anniversary, I want something new to wear, so I made myself a pair of pants. 3 hours later, I got a pair of pants. Is it perfect? No, but no one's going to know.
Gorgeous.
The lights are going to know. They're not going to be going, if they get close enough that they're going to see that top stitching is not entirely parallel to the seam, they're too
back up.
So,
exactly.
Yeah. So perfectionism is a disease. You strive for the illusion of perfection. That is the best you can do.
Oh my goodness.
Well, that is entirely seamless. I have figured out it is entirely seamless. It's all manipulation.
Wow.
Yes, I'm good. Yeah.
Yes, you are.
It's a
And
good one.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
disagreements there.
Was that through trial and error? Like you seem to, definitely you don't just, like you said, cut it out and sew it together. You do a lot of fabric
Right.
manipulations, which we're a fan of.
Right.
So Leah, how did you learn how to do those fabric manipulations?
I had that. Well, the foundation is what's called lattice stocking, or basket weave stocking. And my grandma, when I was a kid, had everyone's grandma had the round pillows that like the woven fabric with the button in the center. It was a very big fashion in the 60s. And my grandma made hers out of gold lame in Salina, Kansas in 1965. And it never occurred to me at the time that was unusual. But her friend, her neighbors are like, "Oh, Rose, those are really something." But whenever we would go, they'd want us to take a nap. I'd want to sleep on the gold pillows. What a surprise. And so the basket weave stocking has sort of shown up over time in my work because it's one of those things that I've always been fascinated with. So I used that as my starting point. There was a time in, it's like 95, because, people say, oh, you're one success or the other, but, there are times you have to make hard decisions. And in 95, the store I was selling to in Los Angeles, we sort of came to a parting of the ways. They were wanting something new and different, but they were wanting it to be the same, which is sort of a self-canceling thing. And I realized this is not fun anymore. So I had to just stop. I had to tell them, okay, we're not doing business anymore. I had to fire my agent. It was, it was one of those things. You'll read about in the novel. And so I withdrew from the marketplace because I had this experience. I was in Paris in 95, and I got to see the collection that got John Galliano the job with LVMH. And it was profound because, he was the one I had been following for years. And through a chain of circumstances, I was there, and it was the day after the couture show, and the guy that I had met that was the head of his workroom said, come back on Monday, we'll show you the video, and you'll get to look at the clothes. And we went and looked at the clothes, and my mind kind of went, and it was really amazing stuff. And so I really had this epiphany. I really kind of said to myself, okay, I can't be John Galliano. He is the best John Galliano there is. But I can be Kenneth D. King. And I knew that in my own way, with my own thing, I had something within me that I would proudly put up next to that. And so I withdrew from the marketplace for a couple of years and just started research and development and burned through all sorts of fabric. And I have, because I don't do sketchbooks, I have what I call lab notes. So I would, what would happen if? And then I would make some experiments and take lots and lots of notes. And they all landed in binders. And here, I'll show you the binders. The binders, there are the binders up there.
Wow.
That, if God forbid this place were on fire, that would go out the window because that is all my research.
Wow.
So it just sort of, it was one of those things that sort of revealed itself over time. And by the end of 96 is when I really started seeing kind of where it was going. So, I just had to kind of take that chance. And that's what really, when I started teaching sewing, I started teaching back in 89. Evening wear is very seasonal. There are times you got a lot of money and a lot of work, and there are times you don't have any. And so I started teaching as sort of a way of evening out the cash flow. And so having the teaching enabled me to say no in 95. And it enabled me to kind of say, okay, this is not working. I need to rethink it and do something else and figure out what I was going to be doing. And, that combined with seeing the collection at Galliano really is what developed the souffle first, and then the cut work, and then the leafing.
Wow.
There's that technique again that he talked about.
Yeah, yes, and it's very interesting getting an idea. Like you said, you don't do sketches either. Like when you say it's technique, it's and I love that you call them lab, your lab books kind of thing, because it's very much like a mad creative scientist, isn't it? With impeccable style. It's not just trying things out. It's really thinking them through. So that's a very interesting insight. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, most definitely. I actually read somewhere where someone said on an Instagram post, I believe it was, they showed a clip of what they called their brain dump. And,
Yeah.
and they just, everything was scribbled all over the paper, and that's how they go back and they collect their thoughts for whatever they're going to create. That's very inspirational to me, because I never thought of things like that, and hearing you say that is what reminded me of that brain dump.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what other questions here?
Okay. I know Dawn is looking for something, and we have questions down below, but let me just get to the questions to the right, Dawn, because they kind of scroll up and they might disappear on us. And
Sounds
for
good.
for all of those that are posted questions down below in the questions section, not to worry, we will get to them, I promise. So there was a question up here. The first one is C. What is your favorite technique subject to teach?
Oh, that's a tough one. Pattern making. Pattern making. It all goes back to the flat pattern. I studied with the best. Of all my education, my time with Simone was the most profound. And if you understand pattern making and fitting, everything else is possible. So I guess that would be it.
Very cool.
Thank you, Claire, for asking that question. And we have another one down there from Samina. It says, I'm renaming my sewing room. It's now the Sewing Lab. That's too funny. And we had one other one, I believe I saw up there. I hate to.
Do you have a favorite fabric? Oh, sorry, I thought you couldn't find mine.
Well, aside from wool, I love working with wool, tailoring. But what? The man-made fibers are really what made everything possible. So as much as people kind of go, oh, man-made, I like fibers because there's so much you can do with them. The part of it is just understanding what the inherent quality of the fiber is and what it does. And if you don't try to force it to do something it's not willing to do, then it can serve you very well.
One of my sorry, Myra. One of the driest classes by far I had in university was textiles, but I would also say it was also one of the most useful, well, besides pattern making, because of just that fact. I use it all the time. Like I go to make something, I'm like, yeah, that's the perfect color. It looks like it'd be great, but I know this aspect will make it cause problems, or it's too wrinkly, it'll shrink too much. I completely agree with you, Kenneth, that definitely knowing your fabrics is very important, and often we find that out by error, but if you understand fabrics, it definitely helps. But what we haven't done really quickly is, for anyone who hasn't seen Kenneth's website, I'll just show you a quick picture of what it looks like, and then I'm a little afraid we're going to run out of time, so I want to make sure I mention this before we finish our questions. I just put his website in the side, and this is his webpage. Now he has two web pages, and this is what I was afraid we were going to run out of time to talk about, is his book. The first webpage that I think is very important that you guys check out is his actual Kenneth D. King webpage, and as I said, it's kennethdking.com. And it has a lot of stuff about what's new, history, press. And if you want to see some of Kenneth's books, and he has a lot of books here, if you look, the moulage, basic sleeve, advanced sleeve, trouser drafts, collars, necklines, skirts, dress, tailor's jackets. Like, seriously, I was telling him there's many there I would love to read. Not to mention, he also has a hardcover book, Cool Couture, as well. And you can get that on Amazon. And
yes.
I just wanted to make sure. Oh, sorry.
I have one coming out called Smart Fitting Solutions. It's coming. Taunton Press is coming out in the spring, so that's another one that's on its way.
Oh, that's very exciting, because I know a lot of people mention that fit is definitely an issue.
It's the holy grail.
It really is, because you can make something beautiful, and then if it fits poorly, it's not going to come across the way you want.
Exactly.
Now, we will get to all the questions, I promise, but I just can't let it go by, because like we were joking around with Kenneth before, like Shrek said in one of his movies, that he's like an onion. He has lots and lots of different layers. And I mean, just listening to him talk tonight, you can tell that he's had so many neat experiences, and he has so many talents, electrical, you name it. So one thing we wanted to make sure we mentioned was that he's written a book, All Grown Up Now, A Friendship in 3 Acts. Now, it's a bit different than his other books. They're all sewing books. This book is literally about his life. There is some bits about his sewing life, but don't expect it to be a textbook on how to sew this gorgeous Fortuny jacket or something. It is, Myra and I were kind of amazed. It's exciting. It's, I think, like really honest. I don't know, maybe Kenneth can tell me if it's true or not, but it seems
true.
like
it's all true.
Yeah, it seems like he doesn't hold much back, and it's revealing and heartwarming and sad and all those things wrapped up into one big bunch. But he's also doing a podcast of the book. And if you go on his other website, the All Grown Up Now, A Friendship in 3 Acts book is actually being read on it by Kenneth, which I think is just cherry on top, really.
Yeah,
so,
I loved it.
allgrownupnow.wordpress.com, I believe. Now, remember, if you ever want any of those links, they're in the information above on Crowdcast and in the information below on YouTube. So
you can just you can go to allgrownupnow.com as well, and you'll get there.
Okay,
that's fantastic.
You can buy the book on Amazon.
Okay. Well, I have to tell you, I was intrigued. I told him earlier that I listened to the podcast of the interview, and I got through 3 of the podcasts for that, and I really want to go back. You guys, if you haven't, you can start to listen to some of the interview. It's actually on the interview podcast. It's actually on his website, right under that picture where it says All Grown Up. Just take a listen. You will be so intrigued. You will want more. And I'm excited to go back and see. So thank you.
So Kenneth, just to give them not a taste, but you introduce it the same way every week. You say it's all grown up now, a friendship in 3 acts, and then you say it has, and there's can you maybe tell us that line? Because you deliver it like no one else could.
Oh my God.
I put you on the spot. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole kind of, our thing playing. But
it's gorgeous. But there is a lot of interesting stuff going on there. And I was going to say it almost seems like it's a movie more than reality, which leads into that. Hopefully one day it might be.
Yeah.
I've written a screenplay based on Act 3. Yes.
Oh, really?
Because Act 3, it's when I kidnapped my friend. Because
that was funny.
Yeah, the first sentence of the book is I had never kidnapped someone before, and it was a kidnapping, and there was a very real possibility that it could go horribly wrong, and I could get my brains blown. I got underwear, I got a car, and so we kind of played out during that whole OJ thing, and so the structure of the screenplay. If anyone out there is a screenwriter, like film people. It's structured like the film Beaches. If you ever saw that film, where you get the backstory and flashbacks, and then it goes forward, and so it's one of those projects I've been working on for a while.
That's awesome.
I was thinking when I was listening to it, like when you design something and you sew it and then you put it out there, especially if it's something a little out there and it's a piece of you, it can be kind of nerving, like you're wondering what people are going to say. But this is like that times a million. It is, it's really showing a side of you that maybe the celebrity side of you, the sewing personality, people won't see, because again, it's not all about sewing. It's about things that happen in your life. So, like, how did you feel when you released that? Were you a little nervous?
I self-published it because I was looking for an agent, and, I would hear, oh, if it's more of this and less of this, and I would say, okay, if I do that, well, then will you represent me? Well, no. I'm like, okay, well, then to hell with it. I'm just going to publish it myself. So, the podcast is really it's a big publicity stunt, really, because you could burn through a lot of money with a publicist, and there's no quantifiable way of figuring out if they do anything. And so with this, I just figured, I'm just going to put it out there and see where it goes. So it's a chance for people to kind of hear the story and, it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Who knows? Maybe Netflix will call you tomorrow morning.
That would be great.
No, that would be lovely. I will entertain all offers.
And yeah, really, and rightly so. I did find sorry, I didn't have it up earlier. This is the cover of his next book, Smart Fitting.
Yes, I'm very, very proud of it. It was a very heavy lift as far as, making all of those muslins and that sort of thing. But I want to shout out to my editor, Judy Newcomb. Judy Newcomb is one of my editors at Threads as well. And it was really her vision that drove the whole thing. And so, it would not have happened without her, because she had an idea of what was needed and how I could actually express that in my own particular way. So I'm very grateful to her for that.
And you said that this is coming out this spring?
In the spring, yes.
Okay.
You can pre-order it on it.
Oh, there you go, ladies.
Okay.
Yeah, pre-order, please.
Amazon.
Yeah.
So now I wanted to make sure we got all that in, because you wouldn't want to say half the story. And sewing is, a huge part of this show and a huge part of Kenneth, but there's more to the story. So I didn't want to run out of time to mention that, but we definitely, if Kenneth, you don't mind, we're a little bit over. If we could just do some of the questions. Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. First one we have from Samina down below. I've had the privilege of attending several classes with you when you travel. Have you considered designing commercial patterns for home sewers? Ooh.
It's a monster that you have to feed, and it's not that lucrative. I know that sounds, because when you're self-employed and you have a fixed amount of time, you have to really look at, okay, how much effort versus how much return. And what I've seen, it's a lot more effort than the return justifies. So, no. I'm not saying I never will, but not.
No, right now. Okay. Thank you, Samina, for that question.
And Claire asks, are you still designing for individual clients?
Yes. Not as much as I have, because what I run into now is they all want it for free.
Oh.
It's like, then they say, oh, my brand is very strong and you'll benefit from the exposure. I'm like, lady, I think the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, that's exposure. Elton John paid for those hats. That's exposure. So, that's a small select clientele, but, and that's okay.
Yeah, Claire in the comments says, for free, no.
Oh my God, this is unbelievable.
Oh yeah, and people don't appreciate what they get for free. They just don't.
No.
And seeing your work, yeah, I 2,000,000% support you. I know there's not 2,000,000%, but I completely support you. I mean, making your own fabrics, manipulating fabric, using gorgeous fabrics like Fruttini. Like not for free. No. No,
absolutely not. And I would be embarrassed if I was that person to come to someone like Kenneth King and ask him for free.
Sadly, they're not. It's kind of amazing. Like, will you do it for exposure? No.
Oh my gosh.
Other question.
We have, what artist inspires you, and have you had a chance to meet them? By Corral.
Well, as far as artists, I love Galliano. I wish he hadn't done the big scandal that he did. I never got to meet him. I got to see his collection though, and that was what I wanted to see. So,
cool.
If I were to pick one, he would be the one, because I just think he's brilliant.
Do you think he'll be back?
Do I think he'll be back? Probably not, because that was very bad what he did. He will never be where he was, and people just you don't talk like that. That is just not. No, it's just not cool. It's just not good, and it's just not good.
Cool. That was from Corral. Thanks, Corral. Sorry.
Next question is from Linda Faye Lewis regarding Cool Couture. Thank you for teaching us about using the serpentine stitch for pad stitching. So effective and such a time saver. And did you want me to get the next one? Okay, the next one is also from Linda Faye Lewis. Will you be coming to Atlanta again for your pants class?
Let's see. believe in March I'm coming for the moulage.
Oh,
You know, the thing that for that one, she would contact the Sewing and Design School in Tacoma, because she's the one who arranges those classes. If there's enough demand, absolutely. Yeah, I go where people want me to teach.
now, I'm sorry,
Sorry.
I just want to ask him a quick question based on that, what he just mentioned. Is there a schedule of where you will be on your website somewhere? Because
KennethDking.com and look under the events.
under events, okay.
I post all my appearances on that page.
Okay.
And I see there's also a contact page there at the top. So if people are interested in coming to have you sew somewhere, not for free, because, you know.
Yeah.
But if you're interested in coming to have you teach a class, sorry, I didn't want people to assume the wrong thing there, that they can contact you easily from your website as well.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's it for our questions, and we don't want to keep him longer than he has to.
Wait at a restaurant right now for me.
Yeah. Okay,
Oh,
sorry,
my goodness. Okay. Well, thank you again, Kenneth, for joining us. We really, truly appreciate it. Good luck on everything that you're doing in the future. And I'm looking forward to your book coming out. So thank you once again. It was our honor to actually have you on the show.
My pleasure.
Yeah. And we'll say goodbye to you. And we are it's been amazing doing the test with you, seeing you tonight. Can't wait to see what you do next.
Better with good lighting.
Oh.
You look fabulous.
You were definitely. So we're definitely one to watch. So have a great night, and we'll continue with our community stuff. But we'll let you go so you can have your anniversary. Thank you.
Happy anniversary. Bye-bye. Okay, that was awesome to have him.
Oh my gosh, he's
there.
amazing.
Yeah, he is. I felt so bad that we were running over, but oh my gosh. Yeah,
but I still didn't answer. I have a whole bunch of questions. I still didn't answer. Like, I didn't get off the first page. He's just that interesting. He's like, I'm sure Claire, Samina, Denise, Carell, everyone would agree.
Yeah.
We have a super short little bit right now where we talk about some things that are coming up in the sewing world.
Yes.
Myra and I have been looking, planning our shows for 2018 and trying to make sure we include some community shows like we did last year with the Flags of the World Challenge. We had some of the ladies come on and various things like that. So we've been looking for things like that. So if you know someone who's making a big sewing event, have them contact us. We'd love to talk about it. Maybe they can come on.
Exactly.
So Myra, what ones are you looking at this week?
Well, actually, one of the first one that I'm looking at is one that I'm actually joining in on, and it is called the Day and Night Dress Challenge. And that one's actually being hosted by Elizabeth Farr of Elizabeth Made This. That's actually running, I believe it is February 22nd through the 28th. And that's where you make two dresses. And one for a day when you have coffee, and the other is a night dress where you would go out in cocktails. And it's going to be really interesting. I guess they had it last year too, and this year I don't know if it's the second or third annual, but I'm very intrigued for this one. And then
I'm joining that too, and I am super excited, even though I have to sew two things. Because really, Elizabeth, she came on our show and won the So You Think You Can Sew competition. She was so amazing that we are just thrilled to be participating in something that she's doing now. So thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you.
I agree with that. And we can't forget that over at So Much Talent, that So Much Talent group, they're awesome over there. And they're actually having in January their stash busting fabric fast. And I believe, I'm not sure, I know the first week was tops, and it was anything within tops. So go over to that, to So Much Talent Facebook group and join in if you haven't, because that is turning out to be a fabulous, they have so many tops to show out there. So they're doing really wonderful. That's a huge group over there of 9,500 members. That's a lot of information and inspiration for everybody. So head on over to So Much Talent.
Very talented, supportive, creative ladies. And it was run by Alethea, and there are many other people helping her run it they're all absolutely fabulous. Yes.
Yes.
We also have two others that we'd like to mention. I want to make sure I say this right. This Sewing Makes You Like Yourself challenge. Now, this is a very body positive sewing challenge. It is the hashtag. You just take the first letter from the Sewing Makes You Like Yourself challenge, SMYLY. So it's very, very interesting. So you make something that just makes you feel awesome. There's not many restrictions on it. Something you put on and you think, you know what, I look good. Or not that I look good, I feel good. I think that's even twice as important. And they also say that then you can go on your, for example, if you have a YouTube channel, go on there and explain how maybe sewing has helped you, because they want to bring attention to how sewing can be very therapeutic and can be very good for you, and talk about body image and, when you're stressed, mental health issues,
Yes.
and how sewing can help as well. So all very hot button issues, and quite refreshing to have them relating to sewing. And it's been really revealing seeing people open up about some of these issues on their channels. And I can't wait to see a lot of the garments. So that needs to be done by, you can participate between January 1st and February 28th. And the ladies putting that on are Hattie, Athena, and Lisa. Lisa was on the last show of last year, so episode 88 at the very end. So you can check out their YouTube channels and find out more about that. As well as the last one to mention is the, let's see if I say it right, New Year's, I wrote it really small, sorry. New Year's resolution, but it's solution. And this is by a girl who has a blog called Boz, B-O-Z. And you just, you can be tagged. And we talked about this on the show because I was a little confused. You don't need to be tagged by someone else to take up on a tagging challenge, especially if it's on YouTube. You can just decide to do it. Myra did that once because she came along late because she started her YouTube channel after the tag had been alive, and it was still fabulous.
Thank you.
This tag has 5 questions for people, and it just gets them to think about what they did last year and what they're going to do this year, but just a little bit more specific. And Myra has already done one of those on her Myra Lorraine YouTube channel. You should definitely check that out. I thought it was very fabulous, and I love learning more about my co-host and other people. So that is between now and, let's see, oops, I don't have the date.
For the...
it just says 2017. I don't think there's
there isn't a date.
Like last year going through this year. So mine was supposed to be out this week because Myra tagged me. Thanks, Myra. But it might take me a little bit. But it's very fluid, which is very nice. And if you need to be tagged, let me know because I'll tag you. I always find that the hardest part.
But you don't need to be tagged.
No, you don't need to be, but I'd love to tag anyone. That's our community notice board. Do you have anything else to mention, Myra? I know we held people so long tonight.
No, it's been a wonderful show. I was actually almost speechless, trying to talk to Kenneth. It was wonderful getting to know a little bit more about him. And I was very sincere, Dawn, when I was talking about listening more to his podcast. And I do want to get his book on fitting when it comes out this spring. So I'm looking at it. He said you could pre-order it on Amazon. So I really want to take a look at that too, as well. But it's fabulous. So I hope you all enjoyed our show. Once again, my lovely host here, Dawn, is done it again. She's managed to get us a fabulous guest on the show. And I hope you did wonderfully. You did a great job fishing.
I was nervous walking up to him in that. I won't lie. It's not very cool. I shouldn't make it sound all suave. I just walked up to Kenneth and said, "Hey, be on our show." But it was so not that like that. I was so nervous, and he was very lovely. So yes, if you ever have suggestions on someone you'd like to see on the show, let us know. We have fabulous people coming up, including next week, Glenda from Sure to Fit.
Yay!
Joy Mahan. I hope I'm saying her name right. I'm famous for saying names wrong. It's awful. And then the 30th, Heather Liu from Closet Case Files.
Yay!
And we've already started filling up February. So, well, we've already filled up part of February. So, yes, it's going to be a fantastic year, guys. And I can't thank you enough for joining us.
Okay, well, if that's it, you don't have anything else, I guess we can wrap it up and let everyone off. So thank you all again for joining us for tonight's show. And we look forward to seeing you all again next week, Tuesday, on That Sewing Blab at 7:30. Have a good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.